Please, don't pull away, she said, shaking, not planning to. The billionaire murmured against hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's heartwarming tale. It all begins on a cold winter evening when a simple act of kindness changes everything. Emma Brooks, a waitress working at a small diner on the edge of town, was not your average city girl. Her clothes were second-hand, her shoes well-worn from walking miles every day. But she didn't mind. She had dreams, and the weight of those dreams was heavy, but she carried them with hope. She had promised her best friend, Jenny, that she would give this blind date a shot, even if it seemed impossible. The restaurant was a fancy one, far beyond her usual price range. She could feel her nerves rising as she scanned the room. The soft hum of conversation and clinking silverware filled the air. The lighting was warm and subdued, making the space feel both intimate and out of place for someone like her. As she stepped inside, she took a deep breath, smoothing her second-hand dress and trying to ignore the way it felt too tight in places, the fabric not quite matching the luxury of the setting. She muttered to herself, "Table 7." Her heart pounded, her palms were clammy, but she pressed on. She glanced around the room once again, her eyes landing on a sharply dressed man sitting alone at the back. He had dark, neatly styled hair, and his sharp suit made him stand out even among the other well-dressed patrons. He was engrossed in his phone, a look of concentration on his face. She hesitated for a moment, then walked over, forcing a bright smile. "Hi, you must be Kevin." "I'm Emma, nice to meet you." The man blinked, clearly startled by her approach. He looked at her for a moment, as if unsure whether he should be confused or impressed. Hi Emma." He paused, his gaze flickering to her face. And then back to his phone. She took a seat across from him, her nervous hands fidgeting in her lap. "Oh, I know this is awkward. Blind dates are weird, right?" she said with a nervous laugh. "Jenny told me you might be a little shy, so don't worry, I can talk enough for both of us." Liam Parker, the man sitting across from her, opened his mouth to correct her, but then hesitated. His business associate had just texted him to cancel their meeting. Something about Emma's earnest smile made him pause. She was nothing like the polished socialites and calculated networkers he usually dealt with. She seemed genuine, and there was something refreshing about her lack of pretense. A faint smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "Right, blind dates are something else," he said, leaning back slightly in his chair. Emma took a sip of her water, still trying to calm her nerves. "Tell me about yourself," she asked, her voice a little steadier. "Well, I work in tech," Liam replied. "Tech?" Emma said, her face lighting up with interest. "Like coding and apps and stuff?" "I'm terrible with computers." Liam smiled, a little more at ease now that they were talking about something more comfortable. "Something like that," he said, his voice softening. He leaned back in his chair, studying her with newfound curiosity. There was something about Emma that made him feel lighter, almost like he was talking to someone real for the first time in a long while. "What about you?" he asked. "I work as a waitress," she said with a shrug, trying to downplay her embarrassment. "Not exactly glamorous, but it pays the bills. Most of them, anyway." Liam couldn't help but laugh softly. He hadn't expected her to be so open, so unguarded. "Well, you're certainly not what I expected," Emma said with a small, thoughtful smile. "Jenny said you were reserved. I thought you'd be all business, but you're easy to talk to." Liam chuckled again, the sound light and genuine. "You're easy to talk to too," he said, his tone warm. They continued to talk, the conversation flowing easily between them. Emma told him about her life as a waitress, her struggles to pay rent, and her dream of one day opening her own art studio. Liam listened intently, laughing at her anecdotes and sharing a few of His own, about his long hours in meetings and the stress of his high-powered job. He was surprised by how comfortable he felt in her presence. She wasn't trying to impress him. She was just herself. And that was something he hadn't encountered in a long time. Emma felt the conversation slipping into a comfortable rhythm when her phone buzzed. She looked down at the message and her heart sank. "Hey, Emma, where are you?" "I'm at table 7, looking forward to meeting you, Kevin." She stared at the text, mortified. She looked up at Liam, her face turning bright red with embarrassment. "You're not Kevin, are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam's smile faltered, his eyes flashing with guilt. "No, I'm not," he said softly. The realization hit her like a ton of bricks. She had sat at the wrong table. Her face burned with shame as she stood abruptly. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought you were Kevin. I'm an idiot." Without waiting for a response, she grabbed her coat and bolted for the door, her heart racing. But Liam watched her go, a strange mix of regret and curiosity swirling in his chest. He had intended to correct her right away, but now he found himself wondering if he would ever see her again, and why the thought of not seeing her again bothered him so much. The next morning, Emma woke up in her small apartment, the sound of her alarm clock blaring in the background. She groaned and reached over to silence it, her eyes still heavy with sleep. The night before had been a whirlwind of embarrassment, and she couldn't seem to shake the memory of the mistaken blind date. Her cheeks flushed just thinking about it. "I can't believe I did that," she muttered to herself, shaking her head. Still, she had promised Jenny she would try. It had been a long time since she had done anything for herself. For now, though, work was calling. She needed to pull herself together. She threw on her second-hand dress, the one that always seemed to make her feel like an imposter in the fancy restaurant where she worked. She tied her shoes, the scuffed one she couldn't bear to replace, and headed out the door. Emma's shift went as usual. She smiled and chatted with customers, served food, and kept the energy high, but her mind kept drifting back to last night. The man, Liam, kept replaying in her thoughts. There was something different about him. He hadn't made her feel like an invisible waitress. He had listened to her stories, laughed with her, and treated her like a real person, not just someone taking his order. That never happened with her usual customers. By the time her shift ended, Emma was mentally exhausted. She dragged her feet home, feeling a strange combination of confusion and curiosity. She hadn't expected to think about Liam so much, but the way he smiled at her, the way he listened, it was different. She couldn't explain it. It was like a spark had been lit, but she wasn't sure if she should let it burn or put it out. The next day, Emma was sitting in the break room at the diner, trying to enjoy her lunch when her phone buzzed. She glanced down, half expecting it to be another reminder about bills or an advertisement, but it wasn't. It was a message from an unknown number. "Hi Emma, this is Liam. I was the guy at the restaurant last night. I know it was a mix-up, but I'd like to see you again. Coffee, maybe." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected to hear from him again, especially not after the awkward way she had left. She stared at the message for a few moments, her mind racing. Should she respond? Should she pretend it never happened? But then she remembered how nice he had been, how easy it had been to talk to him. She couldn't help but smile. Maybe it was worth giving it another chance. She took a deep breath, typed out a quick reply, and hit send. "Okay, coffee sounds nice." Within minutes, Liam responded. "Great. How about tomorrow? I know a quiet cafe downtown." The excitement bubbling inside her surprised her. She hadn't realized how much she was looking forward to this. It felt like a second chance, not just for the date, but for her to be seen, truly seen, by someone. The next day, Emma showed up at the cafe Liam had suggested. It was a small, cozy place, tucked away on a side street. The smell of fresh coffee and pastries greeted her as she stepped inside. Liam was already seated at a corner table, wearing a simple grey sweater and jeans. He looked different in casual clothes, still handsome, but more approachable. "Hi," she said, her voice a little shakier than she had intended. "Hi, Emma," Liam said with a warm smile, standing to greet her. "I'm glad you could make it." She smiled back, feeling a little more at ease now that she was actually here. She sat down across from him, taking a moment to look around the cafe. It was calm and peaceful, a far cry from the hectic energy of the diner where she worked. "Thanks for inviting me," she said, feeling the tension ease from her shoulders. "Of course," Liam replied, his gaze softening. "I wanted to apologize for the mix-up last night. I should have said something sooner, but I didn't want to make it awkward." Emma laughed lightly. "I don't think it could have gotten much more awkward," she said, her face flushing with the memory. "But really, it was kind of funny. I'm glad I didn't totally embarrass myself." Liam smiled, clearly amused. "Well, I'm glad it wasn't a deal-breaker. And, for what it's worth, I had a good time talking to you." Emma's heart fluttered at his words. She hadn't expected him to say that. "Me too," she said quietly, meeting his eyes for a moment before looking down at her cup. "You're different," she blurted out suddenly, surprising herself. Liam raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Different how?" "You're not like the people I usually talk to," Emma said, trying to explain. "You're not all polished and perfect. You actually listen. You're real." There was a brief pause, and then Liam chuckled. "Well, I try to be," he said, his voice warm. "I know it's not always easy to find that in my line of work." Emma looked up at him, her curiosity piqued. "What exactly do you do?" she asked, leaning forward a little. Liam hesitated for just a second before responding. "I work in tech," he said, keeping it vague. "It's complicated." Emma nodded, smiling softly. "I know a little about coding and apps, but I'm pretty bad at it," she joked. Liam laughed. "I'm sure you're better than you think," he said. "Maybe one day I can teach you a few things." The offer hung in the air between them, and Emma found herself smiling a little brighter. "I'd like that." The conversation flowed easily after that. They talked about their lives, their dreams, and everything in between. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she was actually connecting with someone. It wasn't just small talk or forced politeness. It felt real. She hadn't felt like this in years, and it made her nervous in the best way. By the time they finished their coffee, it felt like they had known each other for much longer than just a few hours. Liam stood up first, offering her a smile. "I'm glad we did this," he said sincerely. Emma stood as well, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "Me too," she replied. "I'm glad you didn't give up on me after last night." Liam's eyes twinkled as he smiled back. "I don't think I could." The following week, Emma couldn't help but smile whenever she thought about Liam. It was a strange feeling, this sense of lightness that had settled in her chest. They had met just a few days ago, but it felt like she had known him forever. Their second meeting at the cafe had gone well, and they had continued to text after that. The conversations had become more frequent, with each one leaving her a little more intrigued by him. Every time she heard his name, it sparked a warmth inside her that she hadn't felt in a long time. She couldn't deny that she was beginning to like him, even though part of her tried to resist it. After all, she was a waitress, and he was, well, Liam Parker, a man who could have anyone he wanted. But despite the differences in their lives, he had shown genuine interest in her. It felt like a fairy tale in the making, yet Emma knew she had to keep her feet on the ground. She had learned not to expect too much from life. Still, it was hard not to daydream. One night, as Emma sat at her small kitchen table, sipping on a cup of tea and scrolling through her phone, her screen lit up with a message from Liam. "Hey, would you like to come to a charity gala with me this weekend? It's for a good cause, and I think you'd enjoy it." Emma's heart skipped a beat. A gala? The idea of being in a fancy venue with Liam made her nervous, but it also excited her. She had never been to an event like that before. She had spent most of her life working in low-key jobs, and the thought of stepping into a world of luxury made her feel like an imposter. But this wasn't just any event, it was an invitation from Liam, and that made all the difference. She stared at the message for a moment, her mind racing. Should she go? What if she didn't fit in? What if she embarrassed herself? The self-doubt crept in, but then she remembered how comfortable she had felt with Liam the last time they were together. He hadn't treated her like someone out of place. He had made her feel like she belonged, even if just for a moment. With a deep breath, she typed back, "I'd love to come, Liam. Thank you for the invite." His response was quick. "Great. I'll pick you up on Saturday. I'll let you know the details later." The days leading up to the gala were a blur of excitement and nervous energy. Emma couldn't stop thinking about what to wear. Her closet was filled with simple, everyday clothes, nothing that would be suitable for such an upscale event. She found herself in the middle of a shopping spree, trying on dress after dress, but nothing felt quite right. Eventually, she settled on a deep blue dress she had found in a small boutique, one that made her feel elegant and confident, even if it was more affordable than the designer gown she had imagined. Saturday finally arrived, and as the evening approached, Emma's nerves kicked into high gear. She paced around her apartment, second-guessing everything from her makeup to her hair. The dress fit her perfectly, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong in a world like this. When Liam texted her that he was downstairs waiting, she grabbed her clutch and took one last look in the mirror. She had to do this. She had to trust that Liam saw something in her that was worth more than just appearances. As she stepped out of her building and into the car Liam had sent to pick her up, she felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. Liam greeted her with his usual warm smile as she climbed into the back seat. "You look amazing, Emma," he said, his eyes softening when he saw her. She smiled shyly, feeling her cheeks warm at the compliment. "Thank you, Liam. You look great too." The drive to the venue was filled with easy conversation, but Emma couldn't help but notice how different everything felt. The city lights outside, the luxury of the car, it was all so unfamiliar to her. Liam seemed at ease, effortlessly fitting into the world he was a part of, while Emma felt like an outsider. When they arrived at the gala, the venue was even more magnificent than she had imagined. It was a grand ballroom, with high ceilings, sparkling chandeliers, and elegantly dressed guests mingling about. Emma felt a wave of self-doubt wash over her, but Liam was quick to notice. He turned to her, giving her a reassuring smile. "Don't worry," he said softly. "Just enjoy the night. We're here for a good cause, and that's all that matters." With his encouragement, Emma took a deep breath and followed him inside. The event was just as glamorous as she had expected, with speeches, live music, and plenty of opportunities for mingling. But throughout the night, Emma couldn't help but feel like a fish out of water. She didn't know the right people, didn't know the right things to say. But then Liam would catch her eye from across the room, offering a reassuring smile, and all her doubts would melt away for a moment. It was like a secret signal between the two of them. As the night wore on, Emma found herself having more fun than she had expected. The conversations flowed more easily as she grew more comfortable in her surroundings, and Liam's presence by her side made everything feel more familiar. But it wasn't until the charity auction began that everything truly shifted. Liam had been quiet all evening, but as he stepped up to the stage to speak, Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had no idea he was such a well-known figure in the business world. His speech was brief but powerful, and when he finished, the crowd erupted into applause. She felt a sudden sense of realization. Liam wasn't just someone she met by chance. He was someone who mattered, someone who had power and influence. And yet, here he was, standing beside her, treating her like she was just as important. As the evening drew to a close, Liam walked Emma to the door. He turned to her, his expression soft. "I'm glad you came tonight," he said quietly. "You belong here, Emma. You belong with me." Emma's heart fluttered at his words, and for the first time that evening, she felt like she truly belonged. The gala wasn't just an event, it was a reminder that sometimes, you just need to take a chance. And she had. And it had changed everything. The following week, Emma couldn't stop thinking about the night of the gala. It had been an unforgettable experience, but it was more than just the luxury and glamour of the event, it was the way Liam had made her feel. He had been so genuine, so kind, and that had made all the difference. She had always been wary of people who lived in a world so far removed from hers, but with Liam, it felt different. He wasn't like the others. He didn't treat her like she was beneath him or out of place, he treated her like an equal. That night, as she lay in bed, her thoughts kept drifting back to the words he had said, "You belong here, Emma. You belong with me." She smiled at the memory, her heart fluttering at the thought. But as the days passed, a quiet doubt began to creep in. Was it all too good to be true? Was she just a temporary distraction for him? Liam was everything she had never imagined she would have: rich, successful, confident. And she was just Emma, the waitress from a small diner, struggling to make ends meet, dreaming of something more. Could someone like him really see something in her? The thought lingered, but she pushed it aside, not wanting to ruin the small happiness she had found. As the week went on, they continued to text, and their conversations became more comfortable. Liam would check in on her during the day, asking how her shift went or if she was working on her art. She appreciated his interest in her life, but it also made her question why he cared so much. One evening, after a long shift at the diner, Emma collapsed on her couch, exhausted. Her phone buzzed with a message from Liam. "Hey, are you free this weekend? I've got something I want to show you." She stared at the message for a moment, curiosity bubbling up inside her. "What is it?" she texted back. He replied almost immediately, "I can't say yet, but I promise you'll love it." Emma smiled to herself, wondering what Liam had in store. She hadn't expected anything from him, but somehow, she was excited. She had always been hesitant to let people into her life, but with Liam, everything felt different. She agreed to meet him that weekend, not knowing exactly what she was walking into. When Saturday arrived, she found herself standing outside of a gallery downtown, staring up at the modern building. She had never been to a gallery before, and the thought of walking into one made her a little nervous. Liam's message had been brief, just an address and a time. There was no explanation, no hint about what he had planned. She took a deep breath, adjusted her purse, and stepped inside. The gallery was quiet, with soft lighting highlighting the art on the walls. It was a beautiful space, filled with contemporary pieces, some abstract, some realistic, but all unique in their own way. Emma felt out of place, but she walked deeper into the space, looking for Liam. She spotted him standing by a large painting, his back turned toward her. When he saw her, his face lit up with a smile. "Hey, Emma," he said warmly. "I'm glad you could make it." She returned his smile, though she couldn't help but feel a little out of place. "Thanks for inviting me," she said, glancing around the gallery. "This is beautiful. But why bring me here?" Liam chuckled and walked toward her. "I thought you might appreciate the art, but that's not the reason I wanted to bring you here." He reached for her hand and gently guided her toward the back of the gallery. "I wanted you to see this." They stopped in front of a large canvas, a beautiful painting that Emma immediately recognized. It was one of her own sketches. Her heart skipped a beat as she looked at the piece before her. It was an image she had drawn in the park, the one she had always dreamed of turning into a full painting. She couldn't believe her eyes. How did you get this?" she whispered, feeling overwhelmed. "I commissioned it," Liam said, his voice soft. "I wanted to surprise you. I saw your sketches, Emma, and I knew you had something special. You don't just work as a waitress. You have so much more to offer. You just need the chance to show the world." Emma was speechless. She had never imagined that someone like Liam, someone with so much power and influence, would take the time to not only notice her art but to invest in it like this. She felt a mix of emotions, surprise, gratitude, and even a little disbelief. "Liam, I don't know what to say," she said, her voice trembling slightly. He smiled at her, his eyes filled with warmth. You don't have to say anything. I just want to help you realize your potential, Emma. You deserve the chance to follow your dreams. And I'm here to help you do that. Emma felt a lump form in her throat. She had never expected to be given a chance like this. It wasn't just about the painting, it was about him believing in her, something she had never truly experienced before. She looked at the artwork again, her heart swelling with emotion. This is more than I could ever ask for, she whispered. Liam reached out and gently touched her shoulder. You deserve it, he said softly. You just have to believe in yourself. The words sank deep into Emma's heart, and for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to feel hopeful about her future. As they stood there, looking at the painting together, Emma knew that this was just the beginning. Her life was about to change, and maybe, just maybe, this was her chance to make her dreams come true. As the weeks went by, Emma found herself changing in ways she hadn't expected. Liam's support had been a revelation, not just in terms of her art but in her entire outlook on life. She had always lived in the shadow of her struggles, believing that she was meant to be a waitress forever, never daring to imagine anything beyond her small world. But now, with Liam's encouragement, she was beginning to see things differently. The painting he had commissioned for her had been just the beginning. She had started attending local art shows, slowly getting more recognition for her work. Her confidence grew with every new connection she made, and she realized that the world she had once thought was out of reach was now becoming a reality. But despite all the changes in her life, there was still one thing that weighed heavily on her mind: Liam. As much as she appreciated his kindness and support, she couldn't shake the feeling that he was too good to be true. He was wealthy, powerful, and successful, and she was just Emma, the waitress who had barely scraped by. They spent more time together, and every moment with him felt like a dream come true. He had taken her to more events, introduced her to his friends, and shared parts of his world with her that she had never imagined experiencing. She had met his colleagues, people who spoke in terms of investments and business deals, people who seemed to live in a world where money and power were everything. And yet, Liam had never made her feel out of place. He treated her as if she belonged, as if she was as important as anyone else in that world. It was both flattering and terrifying. One evening, after another successful art show where one of her paintings had sold for more than she had expected, Emma was driving home when she saw Liam's number light up on her phone. She picked it up quickly, eager to share the good news. "Hey, Liam," she said, her voice bright with excitement. "I sold another piece tonight. I can't believe it." "That's amazing, Emma," Liam said, his voice warm and genuine. "I knew you had it in you. You deserve every bit of success coming your way." She smiled at his words, but there was something lingering in the back of her mind. "Thank you for everything," she said softly. "I never would have had the courage to do this without you." There was a brief silence on the other end of the line before Liam spoke again. "You don't have to thank me for that. You've always had the courage, Emma. I'm just happy I could help you see it." Emma's heart swelled at his words. But even as she felt a surge of affection for him, she couldn't help but feel a little uneasy. The truth was, she had grown attached to him in ways she hadn't expected. She couldn't imagine her life without him now, and that scared her. She had always been afraid of letting people in, of relying on someone else, especially someone like Liam. What if he was only helping her out of pity? What if he saw her as just a project, something to fix? The thought lingered, making her feel small, unsure of herself. But before she could dwell on it too long, Liam's voice brought her back to the present. "I have an idea," he said, his tone light and playful. "Why don't we go out for dinner tonight to celebrate your success? I know a great place." Emma hesitated for a moment, still caught in her whirlwind of emotions, but then she nodded. "That sounds perfect." A few hours later, Emma found herself walking into a fancy restaurant downtown, the kind of place she had never imagined herself entering. The soft glow of candlelight and the quiet hum of conversations created an intimate atmosphere. Liam was already waiting for her at a table by the window, looking effortlessly stylish in a dark suit. He stood when he saw her, his smile as warm as ever. "You look beautiful, Emma," he said, his eyes shining with admiration. She blushed at the compliment but quickly recovered. "Thank you," she said, sitting down across from him. The evening passed in a blur of conversation, laughter, and delicious food. As they talked, Emma felt herself relaxing more and more, the unease from earlier slowly fading away. Liam had this way of making everything feel effortless, making her feel like she was the only person in the room. But as the night drew to a close, and they were finishing dessert, Emma couldn't hold it in anymore. "Liam, can I ask you something?" she said, her voice quieter than usual. He looked up, his expression softening. "Of course, anything." She took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "Why me? Why have you helped me so much? I mean, I'm just a waitress. I don't have anything to offer someone like you." Liam's eyes darkened slightly, and he leaned forward, his gaze intense. "Emma," he said, his voice steady, "you have everything to offer. You're kind, talented, and real. That's more than enough. Don't ever think you're not worth it, because you are. You've always been worth it." Emma felt her heart race at his words, her doubts and fears beginning to melt away. For the first time, she truly believed him. "I'm sorry," she whispered, the words coming out in a rush. "I've just been so scared. Scared that I'm not enough, that I don't belong in this world." Liam reached across the table, taking her hand gently in his. "Emma, you belong exactly where you are. And you belong with me." His words hung in the air between them, and Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest. She didn't have all the answers, but she knew one thing for sure: she had finally found someone who truly saw her. And for the first time, she felt like she was enough. They sat there in silence for a moment, the weight of their connection settling in. And in that moment, Emma realized that no matter what the future held, she had taken the first step toward something new, something real, and something worth believing in. As the weeks passed, Emma's life continued to change in ways she never thought possible. The art scene was opening up for her, and she was beginning to see the fruits of her hard work and Liam's unwavering support. She had always dreamt of having her own art studio, and now, it was starting to feel like a real possibility. But as much as she was enjoying her new path, something kept nagging at her, a feeling that she couldn't shake. She had started to fall for Liam, deeper than she had ever allowed herself to fall for anyone before. There were moments when she would catch herself staring at him, feeling a warmth spread through her chest, but then the old fears would creep in. Was she just a temporary distraction to him? What if he was just helping her because he felt sorry for her? These thoughts haunted her, and she found herself questioning their connection more often than not. She had always been the kind of person to guard her heart, to keep people at arm's length, but with Liam, it felt different. He had been there for her in ways she never expected. He had opened doors for her, not just in the art world, but in life. He believed in her in a way that no one ever had before. And yet, she still couldn't shake the fear that she wasn't enough, that she didn't belong in his world. One evening, after a long day of painting and preparing for an upcoming show, Emma was sitting on the couch in her apartment when her phone buzzed. She picked it up, expecting to see a message from Liam. Instead, it was a text from Jenny. "Hey, girl. I was thinking about you today. How's everything going with Liam?" Emma stared at the message for a moment, feeling a pang in her chest. She hadn't really talked to Jenny about Liam much. There had always been a part of her that felt like she was living in a dream, and she didn't want anyone to burst that bubble. But now, as the question hung in front of her, she found herself typing back. "It's going well. Really well. But I'm just not sure where I stand." She hit send before she could second-guess herself. The response came quickly. "Emma, listen to me," Jenny wrote. "You deserve to be happy. I know you've been through a lot, and I know how hard it is to open up, but Liam is a good guy. If he's making you feel special, if he's treating you the way you deserve to be treated, then don't push him away because you're scared. You're not the only one who's been hurt in the past. It's okay to let someone in." Emma's heart clenched as she read the message. Jenny had always been there for her, through all their ups and downs. She knew Jenny was right, but it was hard. Letting someone in, truly letting them into her heart, meant being vulnerable, and that was the last thing Emma wanted. But maybe, just maybe, it was time to take that leap. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned, her mind racing with thoughts of Liam, of her future, and of the person she was becoming. She had always prided herself on being independent, on doing things her way, but there was a part of her that was longing for something more. She was ready to take a risk, to let herself be loved. The next day, she met Liam at a small cafe they had started frequenting. They had gotten comfortable there, spending their afternoons talking about everything and nothing. As she walked in, she saw him sitting by the window, his back to the light, looking every bit the man she had come to care for. Her heart skipped a beat, and she smiled at the sight of him. He looked up as she approached, and his face lit up with that familiar, warm smile. "Hey," he said, standing to greet her. "How's your day been?" Emma sat down across from him, taking a deep breath. She knew this was the moment. She had to stop hiding from the truth, from her feelings. "Liam," she began, her voice soft but steady, "I've been thinking a lot about us. About everything that's happened. And I just wanted to say, thank you." He looked at her, his expression softening. "You don't have to thank me, Emma." But she shook her head. "No, I do. You've helped me in ways I can't even explain. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, and that means everything to me. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, I'm scared." Liam raised an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. "Scared of what?" "Scared of not being enough. Scared of not belonging in your world. I've always been the one who kept people at a distance, who kept things surface level, because I didn't want to get hurt again," she said, her voice growing more vulnerable with each word. "But the truth is, I've started to care about you, Liam. And I don't want to be scared anymore." There was a long pause as Liam sat there, studying her face. Then, slowly, he reached across the table and took her hand in his. "Emma," he said, his voice gentle but firm, "you don't have to be scared. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. And as for me, I've cared about you from the moment I met you. Not because of anything you can give me, but because of who you are. And who you are is more than enough." Emma's heart fluttered at his words. She had been afraid of letting him in, afraid that she wasn't good enough for him, but now, in this moment, she realized that the only thing standing in the way of their happiness was her own fear. And that fear didn't have to control her anymore. She squeezed his hand and smiled, a feeling of warmth and relief washing over her. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'm ready." Liam's smile widened, and he leaned in, brushing a gentle kiss against her cheek. "Good," he murmured. "Because we're just getting started." And in that moment, Emma knew that no matter what the future held, she had taken the first step toward something real, something beautiful, and something worth fighting for. After that moment, everything between Emma and Liam changed. The weight of her fear had been lifted, and she found herself letting go of all the doubts she had carried for so long. It wasn't easy, but every day with Liam felt like a step forward. The more she opened up to him, the more she realized that the life she had always dreamed of was no longer just a dream, it was something that was happening, right in front of her. She had always been scared to take the leap, to trust that she was worthy of love and success, but with Liam, she felt safe. He had proven to her time and time again that he saw her for who she truly was, not for what she could give him or the life she had. They had spent more time together since that cafe conversation, and each moment only made their connection stronger. Liam had taken her to art events, to charity galas, and even to dinner with some of his business associates. While the world they lived in was vastly different, he made her feel like she belonged. He never treated her like an outsider, and that made her feel like she was finally in the right place. But it wasn't just the glamorous events that made her feel alive, it was the quiet moments they shared. The late-night talks, the walks in the park, the way he looked at her like she was the only person in the room, those were the moments that mattered most. One evening, after a long day of work, Emma found herself standing in front of her mirror, preparing for yet another event Liam had invited her to. It was a gala for one of his business ventures, and while she was nervous, she couldn't deny the excitement that bubbled inside her. She had chosen a soft, flowing dress that made her feel elegant, but the nerves were still there. She stared at her reflection, adjusting her hair and touching up her makeup, when her phone buzzed. It was a message from Liam. "Hey, just wanted to remind you that I'm picking you up in an hour. I'm really looking forward to tonight." Emma smiled as she read the message. It had become routine for them, his messages, his little check-ins, but it always made her feel special. She quickly texted back, "Can't wait, see you soon." As she closed her phone, she took one last look at herself in the mirror, feeling a surge of confidence. She wasn't just Emma the waitress anymore. She was Emma, the artist, the woman who had dared to step out of her comfort zone and into a new world. And with Liam by her side, she knew she was ready for whatever came next. When Liam arrived to pick her up, his usual smile greeted her. "You look incredible," he said, his eyes lighting up as he took in her appearance. Emma felt her cheeks flush, but she couldn't stop the smile that spread across her face. "Thank you, Liam," she said softly, feeling the warmth of his words settle in her chest. The evening passed in a blur of luxury and laughter. The gala was extravagant, but Emma felt surprisingly at ease. With Liam by her side, the tension that usually came with these kinds of events melted away. She didn't feel out of place. In fact, for the first time, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. As the night wore on, Liam took her aside, away from the noise of the crowd, to a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The view was breathtaking, lights twinkling below, the city alive with energy. Liam turned to her, his face serious but filled with affection. "Emma, I've been thinking a lot about us," he began, his voice low and steady. Emma felt her heart rate quicken. "What's on your mind?" she asked, her own voice barely above a whisper. Liam paused for a moment, his gaze locked on hers. "I just want you to know that this," he said, gesturing to the city below them, "this is all real. Everything I've said, everything we've shared, it's all real. I want you to be a part of my life, Emma, in every way." Emma's heart swelled in her chest. She had known, deep down, that Liam was serious about their relationship, but hearing him say it out loud made it feel real. "I feel the same way," she said softly, her voice trembling with emotion. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm here." Liam smiled, and for a moment, everything felt perfect. The world around them faded, leaving just the two of them, standing on that balcony, connected in a way that went beyond words. As they shared a quiet kiss under the stars, Emma realized that for the first time in her life, she wasn't just chasing a dream, she was living it. The next morning, as they woke up in Liam's penthouse, the soft morning light streaming in through the windows, Emma looked around, still in disbelief at how much had changed. She was no longer just the waitress from the small diner. She was Emma, the woman who had found her place in the world, not just because of her art, but because she had found someone who truly cared for her, someone who believed in her. And that belief, that love, made all the difference. As Liam wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close, she knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she had everything she needed to succeed, not just in her career, but in her heart. With Liam by her side, the future was wide open, and she was ready to embrace it. As Emma continued to embrace the changes in her life, she found herself becoming more confident, not only in her career as an artist but in her relationship with Liam. They had grown even closer since that night on the balcony, their bond deepening with each passing day. Liam's love and unwavering support had given her a strength she didn't know she had. She no longer doubted her place in the world, and with him by her side, she felt like she could take on anything. They spent their days together in a comfortable routine, enjoying quiet moments at home and attending events that Liam would invite her to. But despite the happiness that surrounded her, there was still something Emma couldn't quite shake. Her past. She had come a long way from the small diner, but there were still memories that lingered in the back of her mind, the days when she had struggled just to pay rent, when she had felt invisible and alone. She had worked so hard to escape that life, and sometimes, the fear of returning to it haunted her. One evening, after a long day of painting, Emma sat alone in her apartment, staring at her latest work. It was beautiful, a piece that reflected her growth, but the self-doubt crept in. What if this is all just a dream, she whispered to herself. What if it all fades away? Just then, her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from Liam. "Hey, I'm thinking about taking a trip to the coast this weekend. How about we get away for a bit? I think we both deserve a break." Emma smiled at the thought of spending time with him, away from the pressures of the city. It sounded like exactly what she needed. She quickly texted him back, "That sounds amazing. I'm in." The weekend arrived, and they drove out of the city, the coastal air fresh and calming as they made their way to a charming beach house Liam had rented. The place was perfect, peaceful, serene, and far removed from their busy lives. Emma felt a sense of relief the moment they arrived, as if the weight of the world had been lifted off her shoulders. They spent the weekend exploring the coast, taking long walks on the beach, and talking about everything and nothing. There were no art shows, no business meetings, just them. And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt completely at peace. One evening, as they sat on the beach, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of pink and orange, Liam turned to Emma, his expression thoughtful. "You know," he said softly, "I've been thinking a lot about us lately." Emma looked at him, her heart racing slightly. "What about us?" she asked, unsure of where the conversation was heading. Liam smiled, his eyes filled with sincerity. "I just want you to know how much you mean to me. I know I've said it before, but I think it's important that you hear it again. I'm not just in this for the short term, Emma. I'm in this for the long haul. I want you to be a part of my life, not just now, but forever." Emma felt her breath catch in her throat. His words, so simple yet so powerful, left her speechless. She had always been afraid of giving her heart completely, afraid that it would be taken for granted. But with Liam, she realized that her fears were unfounded. He wasn't asking for anything but her trust. "Liam," she whispered, her voice shaky with emotion, "I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want you in it. I'm ready for whatever comes next, as long as it's with you." Liam reached for her hand, his grip warm and reassuring. "You're the best thing that's ever happened to me, Emma. And I'm not going anywhere." The words hung in the air between them, as the waves crashed softly on the shore, the sunset fading into the night. In that moment, Emma knew that no matter what had happened in her past, she had found something real, something worth fighting for. She had found love, and not just any love, but a love that saw her for who she truly was, flaws and all. As they stood up to head back to the house, hand in hand, Emma felt a sense of gratitude wash over her. She had come so far, and now, with Liam by her side, she felt ready to face whatever the future held. The next chapter of her life was just beginning, and for the first time, she was not afraid of what lay ahead. She was ready to embrace it fully, knowing that with Liam by her side, she could conquer anything. As the months went by, Emma's life continued to evolve in ways she never could have imagined. She had gone from a small-town waitress with big dreams to an artist who had found both her voice and the love of her life. She had taken risks, faced her fears, and allowed herself to trust in the future, trust in Liam, trust in herself. The art world had opened up for her in ways she hadn't expected. She had her own studio now, a small but cozy space where she could paint and create without worry. Her work was being showcased at galleries, and people were starting to take notice. But despite her success, Emma knew that her true breakthrough wasn't just in the art world. It was in her heart. The fear she once had, of not being enough, of not fitting in, had slowly faded away, replaced by a newfound sense of confidence and self-worth. And much of that came from her relationship with Liam. They had grown stronger together, facing challenges and joys side by side. But there was still one thing on Emma's mind. It had been a year since they had first met at that cafe, since their lives had collided in the most unexpected of ways. A year since she had sat at the wrong table and had no idea that the man across from her would change her life forever. It felt like the right time to take the next step. Liam had become more than just her partner, he had become her family. He had been her rock, her biggest supporter, and the one person who had always believed in her. He had shown her what it meant to trust someone completely, to share not only your dreams but also your heart. Emma knew it was time to make a promise to him, one that would be as real and unbreakable as the love they shared. On a quiet evening, after a day of painting and a walk through their favorite park, Liam turned to her as they stood beneath a large oak tree. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow over everything. It was a perfect moment. "Emma," he said softly, his voice filled with emotion, "I've thought about this moment for a long time. A lot has changed in the past year, and I don't want it to stop here. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to build a future with you, no matter what it looks like. You're everything to me, and I can't imagine my life without you in it." Emma felt her heart swell in her chest as she looked at him. His words, so simple yet so meaningful, made her feel like the luckiest woman in the world. She had always dreamed of finding someone who saw her for who she truly was, someone who didn't just accept her flaws but loved her because of them. And Liam had done that from the start. "Liam," she whispered, her voice shaking with emotion, "I want that too. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. You've made me believe in myself again, and I'm ready for whatever comes next. With you, I know I can do anything." Liam smiled, his eyes full of love and devotion. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Opening it, he revealed a simple but beautiful ring, its diamond catching the last rays of the setting sun. "Emma, will you marry me?" The words hung in the air between them, and for a moment, everything else faded away. Emma's heart raced as she looked at the ring, then back at Liam. She couldn't believe this was happening. She had dreamed of this moment, but it felt even more perfect than she had imagined. Tears welled up in her eyes as she nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes. Yes, I will." Liam's face broke into the biggest smile, and he gently slipped the ring onto her finger. As he kissed her, the world seemed to stand still. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with love, trust, and a future they would build together. The years ahead wouldn't be perfect, but Emma knew they would face them together, hand in hand. She had found more than just love with Liam, she had found a family, a partnership, and the courage to dream bigger than she ever thought possible. And as they stood there, beneath the oak tree, Emma knew that this was only the beginning of the beautiful journey ahead. With Liam by her side, there was nothing they couldn't overcome, and everything they could achieve. She had found her home, not in a place, but in a person. And that person was Liam.